Hi everybody, it's me, Willow, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. We're back with another fun video for all of you guys to enjoy. Today we will be breaking down the first 3 episodes of the new FX Hulu show, Love Story, the JFK Jr. and Carolyn Bessette romance. I am so excited for this show because it is in the umbrella of the Ryan Murphy cinematic universe, and I am a huge Ryan Murphy fan. Love him or hate him, he is definitely one of my guilty pleasures in life. I have seen almost all of his series, not every single one, but I am a big fan, and I'm definitely more inclined to this show compared to some of his other more recent stuff. But I do want to highly note that this is more of a Connor Hines project than it is a Ryan Murphy. Ryan Murphy is just like the executive producer. I'm not sure if he's directing any episodes, but this was created by Connor Hines, who has also worked on the show Dollface, and he's also worked on Something from Tiffany's, which was like a romantic comedy, kind of like love story movie. So kind of similar, you know, has a similar vein. So I'm very interested where this series is going to go. We have the first 3 episodes, and I'm trying to get this out before the 4th episode comes out. I'm not sure if they're gonna release it one more episode or if they're gonna release it like 2 episodes at a time. It's kind of weird sometimes with how Hulu releases their stuff. So I'm very excited because I'm really loving this show so far. I just love the whole vibe and everything. I also think it's specific to note that at the beginning of each episode it says it's inspired by the true events, but there are fictional elements, so we can see that some things are probably dramatized and maybe some things are a little bit based on assumptions. And I think that's good to kind of keep in mind that we are following a lot of the truth that went on with these famous couple, but it's not necessarily all 100% true fact. So I do think that's important to point out. I am quite young. I just turned 25, so I was born after their deaths, so I am not like super aware of this like 90s hot pop culture moment. My mom, you know, I kind of talked with her a little bit about it, and she talked to me about what she remembered from it, and of course they're just like iconic in pop culture, and as a big pop culture girly I am aware of them to like an extent. But I am Canadian, I am kind of the generation after John and Carolyn, so again, like when I'm watching these episodes, I am just not 100% sure like how accurate it is. Like I'm really enjoying it as TV and as like this fictionalized, like I don't really have much of an attachment to these 2 real life people, but I'm wondering, people who, you know, were kind of, you know, maybe in their teens or in their 20s or whatever during the 90s when they were such a hot couple, like what you guys are thinking of the portrayal from Sarah Pigeon and from Paul Anthony Kelly. I'm a big Sarah Pigeon fan. It took me literally 2.5 pages of notes to realize that I knew who she was. Like I was watching the entire time and I was like, she looks so familiar, how she talks is familiar, but I don't know who she is. And then it took like the very end of episode 1, and with her facial inflictions, I was like, that is Leah from The Wilds. And I just love this transformation physically, but also kind of like emotionally, this maturity that Sarah has been able to grasp onto Carolyn from Leah. I really love to see this transformation. I think it's so interesting. I love the different, like Leah had this very particular attitude about her, and I think that's kind of, you know, Sarah's inflictions a little bit coming out, and there are kind of similarities between the 2 portrayals, but I think in like a completely different way. Like with Leah, it was such a like I need to be right, like people are trying to make me seem like I'm crazy, but I know the truth. And here with Caroline, it's a very similar matter of fact kind of attitude coming forth. But with Caroline, she is very like confident. She feels like she knows what she's doing and putting her best foot forward. So I'm really loving this. Also, Paul Anthony Kelly is like the new white boy of the month. Like 3 episodes released, and bye Connor Story and Hudson Williams. It's Paul Anthony Kelly all over my screen. I believe he's also a Canadian like actor model, so love that representation again from Canada. Awesome. I also am enjoying the rest of the cast as well. Point out Grace Gunner and Naomi Watts. They're also highly prominent in the first 3 episodes, specifically Naomi Watts in episode 3. It's all basically Jackie Kennedy, who she's portraying, and I've been hearing a lot of mixed things about her portrayal as Jackie Kennedy. I would definitely say for the first 2 episodes, it's just like, I don't know, like I feel it's very much a caricature, and I know like Jackie, like she had the very transatlantic kind of 50s styled accent, and I don't know, sometimes it's just hard to not make those different, you know, characters about a person not turn into like a little bit overdone or a little overzealous. So I don't love the Jackie portrayal in the first 2 episodes. They're not like my favorite. I do really like her. I believe it's episode 1 at the dinner table, and John is like late because he was talking with like Carolyn, I believe, or Daryl, and I like that little exchange between John and Jackie, and then Jackie just like gets up and like leaves because she's no longer hungry. I thought that was very interesting, but I do really like her in episode 6. Like I know some people thought it was a little overdone with her like burning the letters and stuff like that, but I do think it's a very interesting insight to this woman who is in such a public spotlight, and she was raised to be this like diplomat, and kind of contrasting it between her son, who at such a young age was literally forced into the limelight due to this trauma, and he was forced to live his trauma on the world stage for everybody and grow up in front of everybody. And between his father and his mother, very different dynamics of how they grew up. And I saw somebody's like, I think it was like a tweet or something, and instead of, you know, having like these mommy issues, he has these daddy issues, and all the women that he kind of surrounds himself with in his love life are very much a reflection of his father and his attitudes and how he lived his life. So I think there's a lot of layers to this show, and I think the first 3 episodes, I know a lot of people think are a little bit slow, and it's called Love Story, and we're not getting into the love story quick enough, but I think the first 3 episodes are such great pacing because we're really being set up in this relationship between Jackie and John, and seeing this dynamic of how John has grown up being very scrutinized and with a lot of pressure, and we see, you know, he's trying to make himself like an individual and working on his magazine George, but these investors are really only taking the meeting with him because of who he is, and they just want to be seen with him at a luncheon rather than actually being interested in his ideas of how to make the political landscape like popular for everybody and attainable and digestible. So I do think it's very intriguing to see who John is as a person and all this limelight and scrutiny. I think a great line that Grace Gunner gives as Caroline Kennedy is she doesn't understand why they always have to put a brave face up for the public. And I think this is kind of a really overarching theme of this season of putting a brave face on, trying to, you know, give the media and the paparazzi what they want and be these media stars and be this like, you know, big celebrity and be like this this unattainable image for the world. So I really do think it's interesting because John just wants to be this like regular guy. We see him riding his bike to and from his office, to his different meetings. But, you know, when he loses his bike because it gets stolen because he doesn't lock it up, the next day he automatically has a new replacement. So I do think that juxtaposition of him, you know, being in these more like kind of, I don't know what that style of hat's called, but that little loafer type hat or whatever, and these more casual, laid back outfits, you know, changing from his suit outfit to his street outfit, riding his bike, doing all these like normal, mundane type things. But then, you know, he's very obviously has this special treatment. He can just walk into Calvin Klein and be seen and get fitted, and he can just buy a new bike immediately after it's been stolen. So I am really loving this juxtaposition, and I think after specifically episode 3 with the death of Jackie Kennedy, we're going to see this wide shift in the show, and we're going to see a little bit more of the depth and the sexiness and the drama between Carolyn and John. I feel like we've already got a little taste of that with the Michael Bergen storylines that we were seeing in episode 2 and episode 3, played by Noah Fernley. Hopefully that's how you say his last name. I do think he was very interesting, and I did see, I'm not sure if it was like the Ringer podcast or whatever, but it was like with Joanna, and she was talking about Love Story, her little review with her other co-host, and they were talking about how Michael Bergen has like a memoir or like a story that he wrote all about his time with Caroline. So I'm very interested if he was kind of like an anonymous reporter, you know, an insider to this series. I do believe they've been working on this show for quite a few years now, and it finally has made it to our screens. And even like, I think right up to the filming, they couldn't find their JFK Jr. So it seems like they have been really down to the wire trying to find the perfect way to bring this show to life, and I'm very intrigued. I'm definitely going to continue watching the show. I'm also a big fan of just like the ambiance. I think it's filmed very nicely. I think there's lots of interesting saturation scenes, like when they're at the iconic New York Indian restaurant. We've seen that in quite a few other pieces of media, and I really like that scene and how it's lit with the lighting and everything. Also in episode 3, like the rain scene at the end of the episode, I think is perfect as well. It's lit beautifully as well. It's just so 90s, so romance, and I think the music is so amazing as well. We have Fade Into You, which some people thought was cliche, but I really enjoyed it. We also have Duran Duran's Undone, which I just think is fabulous, so incredible. There's some really banger needle drops. Just in the first episode, we have Kiss Me, I Touch Myself, Heaven or Las Vegas, and even more. And then, like I said, even more incredible songs. So really do love it. I also think the kind of aesthetic of smoking, like we've definitely been seeing this resurgence of like the skinny 90s coming back in the last couple of years, and with that, smoking has definitely been coming back into the media. I don't know if you guys follow Sig Influencer on Instagram, but they're a very prominent social media page, and they just post like every kind of pop culture moment of like smoking, and it's been a page on Instagram that's been heavily on my feed as of recently, because it just seems like smoking is completely back in the pop culture sphere, and this show is helping to bring that to life, because man, everybody's smoking a cigarette in this show, including Jackie Kennedy, who is literally like falling down and having these medical episodes, but she ain't giving up her smoke. So I do think it's very 90s coded, and even like the whole Vogue storyline and her working at Calvin Klein and this fashion industry, very 90s as well. I thought the kind of little tidbit of like the Marky Mark incident and his homophobia, and how he had to be removed as one of the Calvin Klein models, and we have Calvin Klein, who at the time is in the closet, and he wants to make a statement on the behalf of like the company saying this is not appropriate what Marky Mark has done. And then one of his like co-workers is like, oh well, like, are you gonna make it on behalf of yourself? And he's like, no, of course not. Like, he's not, you know, he's not that bold enough to be like, don't stand against this hate. But I do think that like insight of the 90s is very interesting with like the Vogue world and not speaking in the elevator at Calvin Klein, the different kind of levels of homophobia and being in the closet, the smoking, the music, even the fashion. I think everything that they're dressing Paul and Sarah in is just so to the point. The only costume I've had a little bit of an issue with was the black slip that Carolyn wears to their first date, and that she gets kind of like stood up for like 20 minutes for. Don't love that. I think it's just a little bit too sheeny for me. I didn't love that when they were filming either on location. I saw that earlier in 2025, but that's the only costume that stood out to me that just wasn't my favorite. And I don't love her like kitten heels in that scene either. But I think all of the vintage pieces that Jackie Kennedy wears are just gorgeous. These like 60s 70s little like two-piece kind of Chanel tweed outfits, you know, just classic Kennedy with all of her headscarves and her huge sunglasses. Like such an iconic fashion inspiration. I love Jackie Kennedy's fashion, so I'm just really interested in this show and where it's going to continue to go. I think we're definitely going to dive way deeper into the love story here in the show now that we've kind of done a bit of the story building and understanding a little bit more about these two characters and kind of what John is and how he's kind of a little bit passive when it comes to his relationships, specifically with Daryl and with his mother, and how he can't really speak up and say what he truly wants because of the pressure and the fear of not being like the perfect American son for the world, for everybody. And I also think Sarah as Caroline is very, very fun and messy and sexy, and I'm just so excited to see her to continue to explore and kind of transgress. You know, we see her at the very beginning of the series, which is, you know, kind of flash forward in time to the very end of their love story, and we see that she is so undecisive, does not feel confident in who she is. She's much more blonder. She's not sure if she should do a red or a nude nail. How should she fit into this world of the Kennedys? She's no longer the Bessette that she was and this free agent, this independent woman. She has to be more of this subjugated image, this kind of accessory to John, this perfect woman, this perfect wife, this perfect image for America. And then we kind of, you know, flash back towards when she hadn't even met John and she's just carefree, wild. Her hair is more messy and natural, and she's definitely a red girl on her nails and her toes, and she is very confident in what she wants to wear and her choices. So just to see this kind of transgression, I'm going to be very interested and intrigued in how we get to see this in the next couple episodes. I think there's 9 episodes. I believe it's either 8 or 9, so we have about 6 episodes left. So very, very excited to see what we have in the next couple episodes. If you guys are interested in a base by base, like each episode review, make sure you guys go give me a follow on Serialized. I am recording every single episode I watch. I write my little review kind of as I'm watching it and post them on Serialized, so make sure you guys go give me a follow there. Also check me out on Letterboxd, on Instagram, on TikTok, and also the Awards Expert app. I'm on all those social medias at Willow D. Steele to make it very easy for you guys to find me. Thank you guys so much for the engagement and the love on those platforms, and while you're at it, make sure you guys give this video a like if you enjoyed the review, and comment down below what you guys think of Love Story. Which one was your favorite episode out of all 3? I definitely think episode 3 was my favorite because I really liked learning a little bit more about Jackie Kennedy. I'm a big fan of the film Jackie with Natalie Portman. I feel like this is a little bit of a similar take on that Jackie Kennedy character, and I really love the speech and the monologue that Naomi gives in the end of the episode towards John. I just love their little conversation. I think it's very insightful into the character of John as well. So loved episode 3, and I just can't wait for the rest of the episodes. So let me know your thoughts down below, and make sure you guys hit the subscribe button and the post notification button so you don't miss my reviews for the rest of the episodes that come out in the next couple weeks. I will have episodes reviews for the rest of the season, so make sure you guys are subscribed subscribe to my channel and have post notifications turned on so you don't miss out on any of my content going forward. Thank you guys so much for all the engagement, as it really helps to grow my platform and helps to push my channel out into the algorithm for more people to find. And we're so grateful to grow my cinema loving community here on the Willow Steele channel. So thank you guys so much for your support. And until my next video, remember to keep getting lost in film, guys. Bye.